Hey, Texas Values friends, Jonathan Saenz here, president of Texas Values. It's not every day that I do this where we have something that's sort of off script or not expected when it comes to our Facebook Lives and different things that we do. But we have breaking news, okay? And that's why I wanted to take some time to bring this to you. But before I do, okay, I'm going to try to share this on my phone because this is a big deal. It's not every day that our team is able to be in a position to set someone free from criminal prosecution. But that's exactly what we were a part of today. So, all right, I got to wait to see that this feed comes up on my phone, and then I'm going to share it. I see it here on Texas Values. It's live. I want y'all to share this on your phone too, because this is a very important segment. And let's see, I'm seeing, okay, when it goes away from me, by the way, Ashley, I do see the green screen come up. So you might want to be careful how often you share your screen. Um, Hey, listen, Jonathan Saenz, president and attorney for Texas Values. Breaking news earlier this afternoon, the Trump administration Department of Justice dropped the criminal charges against Dr. Eithan Haim. This Dr. Haim is the doctor who was the whistleblower that told the truth about what was happening at Texas Children's Hospital on the child sex change procedures. The hospital said they weren't doing those. Dr. Haim was a resident training to be a doctor there at the time, and he noticed that they were, and he called them out on it. Well, guess what? The Biden administration tried to indict him on federal charges related to other issues related to so-called privacy issues, a part of federal law. Well, there was no reason for him in that circumstance to be charged because what he did was not wrong and it wasn't illegal. These were simply tactics, political motivations, a way to try to shut him up, to censor him, to gag him, to keep him from telling the truth. All of that is over today. In case you didn't know, President Trump was inaugurated on Monday. And the reason I know that is because I was there in DC. And it is a new day. This unjust lawfare scam that has been going on is over. And this is another indication of that. The Trump administration is intending to take quick action. But you never know if these things are going to happen. So the Biden administration, their Department of Justice, had brought these criminal charges against Dr. Haim. He was facing up to 10 years in jail. And from what I was hearing from a source, he was concerned that he might end up in jail this weekend because these charges and this indictment's been looming against him for quite some time. So it's a new day. Trump administration comes in. Listen, we were working behind the scenes on this issue, and I'm not trying to take a lot of credit. There were a lot of people that did some heavy lifting, but we also saw as a priority, or is there any way that we could use, our resources, our relationships, and things of that nature in order to help this thing move quickly? And so we did what we could do. And so I'm so happy. And I got to talk on the phone with Dr. Haim earlier today. Man, the joy and elation in his voice. And I almost think, almost sort of disbelief. And I think we got a picture of him with like a champagne glass that he's already celebrating with his young daughter, who, listen, I have kids. Many of us out there have kids. I mean, he's just become a father and he's a husband. And, he was concerned some of the most precious years of his daughter's early life he was not going to see because he was going to be behind prison bars up to maybe 10 years. But what was interesting is when I talked with him on the phone today, earlier today, because I called him just to make sure he had seen the news, because this is how the world works, right? Some reporter put it on X or Twitter. I saw it. I retweeted it. We put out a press release, and I'm like, I wonder if Dr. Haim knows already. And I called him, and we had a brief conversation. And when we first talked, he was concerned on whether or not they were going to get, the judge had not signed the order yet. So what happened was the Department of Justice, they filed a motion saying we're dismissing the criminal charges, but it still necessitated a judge signing that order, which happened within an hour or so after we got word of this filing. But when I talked to Dr. Haim about it, he understands the magnitude of all these issues. Remember, in Texas, we passed a law on this issue last year to make it clear, 2 years ago now, 2023, to make it clear that children are protected from these sex change procedures, these gender mutilation procedures. These things can be irreversible. These can ruin people's lives. Sometimes they can be fatal. We know people like Chloe Cole, who was in the process at a very young age, at 12, at going through a so-called sex change and gender transition, said, this isn't a good idea for me. I don't want to continue doing this. and she allowed herself to continue to develop naturally as a woman. Now, that's not without some shortcomings, right? There's some things that happen to her body that cannot be reversed, and now she's telling people about the dangers, right? So, as all of this was happening, Texas Children's Hospital was still involved in these things, right? And so then the law passes. Dr. Haim starts telling his story. People like Chris Rufo and others were courageous enough to report about it because, look, Texas Children's Hospital, one of the biggest hospital companies in Texas for sure, and certainly in parts of the country. Not a easy person to go up against, right? Now you got the Biden Department of Justice breathing down your neck, showing up at his house, showing up at Nurse Vanessa Sivage's house, putting a lot of pressure on them. And thankfully, Attorney General Paxton tried to step in and do some things, but the indictments were still looming over his head, right? Over on his shoulders, right? And so his daughter was being born. He was wondering whether or not he was going to see her in those, few brief moments at the beginning. And so we didn't know what was going to happen. And so our hope was, with a change in administration and President Trump being so active and vocal about how there were not going to be sex change operations on kids, that it should be a no-brainer. It wouldn't take a whole lot of effort for these charges to be dropped, but we didn't know if it was going to happen or not. So thankful yesterday when an executive order was signed, dropping and pardoning the criminal charges and convictions and all that stuff against the pro-lifers. I think there were 20 or 23. Huge deal, huge news, right? Some of these people were in jail. But, Dr. Haim was still in a place where he might end up going to jail. And was that going to happen? And so incredible. I mean, we're not even a week into the Trump administration presidency, and you already see action that's saving lives. Not only does this preserve the life of Dr. Haim or preserve his innocence, right, and keep him out of a criminal jail and prison, but it allows us to continue to save the lives of these kids, because that's what's at the heart of this, right? At the heart of this is kids having their lives altered, irreversible damage, possibly losing their life to this junk science, right? He was courageous enough to tell the truth about this, Dr. Haim. Without him, who would have known it was going on? Who else would have stepped forward, right? And he was paying the price for telling that truth. So when we were having the conversation earlier, it's not as if we want to go to prison, but when we step forward like he did, and many of us have done some things similar to that, but we're willing to pay that price if that's what it takes. But you know what? The other side is sort of counting on that you will not be willing to make that sacrifice, that at the end of the day, you will break. You will not allow yourself to go to jail. Dr. Haim was. We were hoping it wouldn't come to that, but wow, from what I was hearing from a source, that he could have ended up in prison and in jail this weekend. That's how close things were getting. So excited. But I want to say thank you too to our supporters, because I know sometimes we talk a lot about things we're doing. Sometimes we don't talk about as much of them because they could be sensitive or it could disrupt what we're doing. This had a little bit of both. We talked a little bit about it publicly, but privately we were doing a whole lot more work than we were discussing publicly, hoping that this would get done without really maybe tipping the other side or jeopardizing it in any way. And so, listen, I don't know if I have the authority to name some of the people that were involved in some of these things, but I just want to tell you, so many of the leaders that who they are at the state and the federal level from Texas care about these issues. And, many of them were talking about them publicly, right? U.S. Senator Ted Cruz has talked about this issue. Congressman Chip Roy was talking about these issues before this happened today. And so we're so grateful that however it came about, that the Department of Justice has dropped the criminal charges against Dr. Haim. And think about all the kids that are going to benefit from knowing that there are courageous people out there that are going to step up. In other states, I mean, there are close to 20 states that have a law like the state of Texas. This issue is up before the U.S. Supreme Court, right? We've got a law like the one in Texas that's coming out of the state of Tennessee that is being challenged at the U.S. Supreme Court. By the way, the Biden Department of Justice is behind that decision in that legal action as well. So we could see some shift in that as the Trump administration's Department of Justice gets settled in up there in Washington, D.C. And so, look, I know it's Friday afternoon. People are sort of tuned out. You're getting ready for the weekend and things of that nature. Look, and I want to see y'all at the Texas Rally for Life. Some of y'all are at the March for Life today in D.C. My kids' school, Savio High School, is out there as well. So shout out to to them. I hope they're having a great trip. And, I just got back from DC with my family. So, just a lot of reasons to feel thankful. We're going to be at the Texas Rally for Life tomorrow from 1 to 3. Then we're going to have a reception over at our office, 1005 Congress, just a block away south of the Capitol. Hope to see y'all there. And we can celebrate these victories when we get them, because they can be very difficult and sometimes it can take years. 50 plus years for a life decision like overturning Roe versus Wade, even though in some other states they don't have the strong protections like we do in Texas. We need to continue to send that message. We love them both, and that we're there for the mother and the child, right? We care about these things. But listen, if you see value in our work, please consider a tax-deductible donation to Texas Values. You can make that donation at txvalues.org. It is no stretch of the imagination or exaggeration to say that our work in one way or another, and look, again, like I said at the beginning, I'm not trying to take credit from other people or take a whole lot of credit on this. We played a role. I think it was a significant role, but certainly at no level of some of the other people that have spent a lot of time on this. But Dr. Haim thanked me personally for our work and said that he was so thankful to have us a part of it, couldn't have done it without us. And so when you're supporting us, you're helping keep people like Dr. Haim free, so the free speech can be strong and that they can stay out of jail and stand up to this unlawful type of action that the Biden DOJ brought against him, but also to recognize the value of someone like him and us standing up for them and backing him. And we've been backing him up as much as we can since we learned about this issue from day one. So please consider making that tax-deductible donation on our website, txvalues.org. And that's how we can protect faith, family, and freedom in Texas. Have a great weekend. God bless you, and God bless Texas.